Hey everyone, welcome back to Bryan's Mysteries and Adventures on Trail, and today's video is really crazy interesting. This was actually brought to my attention by a viewer, this area, and so today we're going to be talking about missing hikers, other strange disappearances, various legends, plane crashes, all that took place in White Mountain National Forest, which is in New Hampshire. So what we're going to do is we're going to just first look at the area. I'll just put up a map here. So it's sort of in central New Hampshire, but sort of in the northern central part. I don't know, I had heard about a few disappearances over the years in research, but it's pretty crazy all the stuff that has happened in this area of New Hampshire. So most of these stories were recounted to various New Hampshire newspapers by the various police commanders that had worked the area and had worked there for many years. The first story takes place on Mount Kangamagus, which is in the White Mountain National Forest, and 1 week back in around 2004, a hiker was there hiking around, and he had found this area via his Appalachian Trail guide. While he was up on this mountain, he stumbled upon human remains, and obviously he was shocked, and he went back down. He got law enforcement. They returned with him the next day and brought down the remains and sent them to a lab, and through the use of dental work, they discovered that it was a missing man, Stephen Romneys, who was a Massachusetts man who went missing back in October of 1984. They did some tests, and it was determined that he had died of suicide, most likely. The police commander reported thinking that it was just amazing that this all had happened, because the hiker was way off what he called the beaten path, and the age of the remains were, at the time, they were over 20 years old, and it was such a cold case. They thought that they would never have figured that out. So that was one that they were able to bring to a close and give their family some closure. In around 1994, hikers that were hiking the Valleyway Trail in Randolph discovered the remains of a woman that was apparently from Massachusetts. And the Valleyway Trail is a trail that is the easiest way up to this Madison Hut, which I guess is a very popular trail and hiking route in the area. And according to the newspapers at the time, this woman's remains were found over 75 feet off the trail, which, as you can see, it's a pretty open area. And the troopers reported that when they went back up, the hikers that had found the woman had had a GPS device, and they had actually taken a reading at the discovery of her remains. But when the troopers went back up to try and find them, even with the GPS coordinates, they said it was, they were climbing up various ledges, and it was just very hard, even with the modern technology, to rediscover the remains, which they eventually did. But area police in this White Mountain National Forest say that they get several calls every year from missing loved ones that say that they've gone up into these mountains to either, commit suicide or just hike and never come back. And this one guy was saying how he said that there's probably many that aren't even reported missing. So he said that, there's no list that they keep, but he is a 24-year veteran of the state police, and he reported that one of the most bizarre cases was that of Michael Miller, who was 23 in 1983, and he went up with some friends from his school, the MIT, in October for a weekend. It was a Sunday, and according to the papers, he was going up this mountain, Mount Lafayette, which is in this national forest, and he shouted back to his friends, yeah, I'll see you at the summit, who were on the Old Bridle Path, which is right here. This is Mount Lafayette looking west towards the Old Bridle Path. According to Michael's friends, it was already 3 p.m. on that day, and they said it was far too late to consider summiting with a 5,260-foot mountain, and he was only in jeans, boots, and a leather jacket. I think he was also wearing a sweater, they said. Anyway, a search got instantly started, and it went on for over a week. But unfortunately, weather conditions deteriorated rapidly, and because this was getting, this was October, and it was up there, they start getting cold weather in fall. And unfortunately, it got to the point where they had, hurricane force winds apparently. And apparently, to this day, nothing indicating what might have happened to this guy has ever been found. Not a piece of clothing, not any piece of evidence, nothing. It's just one of those enduring mysteries. According to authorities up there, one of their most puzzling cases happened in the early 70s. A woman by the name of Ethel Norris, her and her husband, they were roughly in their 80s. And one night they took a ride up to a house that they owned on Swain Hill in the Warren area. And this is all within the area of the National Forest. Anyway, so the husband, he started mowing the lawn. She changed her clothes and decided that she was going to go up for a little walk. Well, he kept mowing, and when he finished, she had never come back. They followed this with one of the most massive searches of the area. It involved hundreds of people, helicopters, volunteers did all kinds of grid and bump searches. They did searches along the road just in case that she had maybe been hit by a car and thrown into the woods. And through all this searches, they never found anything. And I mean, she was an 80-year-old woman, so what the heck happened to her? She couldn't have gotten that far on foot. And yes, animal predation is always a possibility, but again, there's usually evidence of that. So, I mean, it's just like, what happened to this poor old woman? Just crazy, but just another one of those enduring mysteries of the White Mountains. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about this next case, which happened in the woods of Haverhill, which I'm going to put a map up, so it's sort of just to the east of all the rest of these, or west, excuse me. And that's the case of Maura Murray, who went missing in February of 2004, which I know probably everyone is familiar with this case, so I'm not going to talk too much about it because I could do a whole separate video just on her case. And if you guys want me to do that, just let me know, I can do that. But Maura went missing in February of 2004. She was in college, apparently was having a rough day. She decided to come up to New England, and you know, there's a lot of conspiracies into it. She was driving a car on this road right here and crashed into that tree with the blue ribbon. And it wasn't a fatal accident. It wasn't really even that bad of an accident. She got up, walked away from it. This guy who was behind her in a bus tried to help her, called 911, but by the time the authorities got there, she had left. You know, it was a very puzzling scene, you know, because there was fresh snow, but they couldn't find any footprints. Honestly, to me, this case with Maura Murray, I personally believe that she had been drinking that night based on the evidence in the car. She walked away because she was scared of maybe getting in trouble with the police because she had gotten in trouble recently. And I understand that. I'm not, you know, saying anything bad against her. I'm sure she was just scared and she walked away. And I'm assuming that since there was no footprints, I'm assuming that, you know, somebody pulled off the side of the road and offered her a ride, and that was it. You know, unfortunately, it was probably bad people. You know, they might have been young kids or something that she maybe partied with that night and things got out of hand. I don't know. It's hard to say, but I don't believe that she's still alive. I think something unfortunately very bad happened to her that evening, and it was just one of those things where a series of events just led up to this tragedy. And I hope her family can get the closure and answers they so desperately want and deserve soon. I hope this case can be solved. In June of 1972, a hiker that was on Jenny's Peak in the Watervale Valley, he was walking just on his hike and he discovered the wreckage of a plane, a Cessna, which unfortunately still had the pilot strapped inside. And this plane, it had been missing since March of 1966. It was originally bound for Maine from Burlington, Vermont, and it had gone down in a heavily wooded area. So despite all the searches that they had for this plane and the pilot, they went unfound. And thankfully in 1972, this hiker was able to, you know, stumble across it, and the plane was eventually brought out. The pilot was eventually returned back to his family so that he could get a proper burial. This next story, it's a legend. It revolves a Mormon settlement, and as the legend states, these people originally from Vermont were living in this area, in the White Mountain National Forest area of the 1830s. And then one day the people of the valley looked up toward the settlement and saw smoke from various chimneys. On going up to investigate, they found that the stoves were all still warm, the pots were all, you know, cooling down, but there was no people anywhere. So they thought that the settlers had just upped and left to go follow Joseph Smith out west, who had gone out west to, you know, find the Church of Latter-day Saints. However, no one was able to confirm that they had. When they caught up with them, they said that they didn't know where they were. The East End History and Robert Frost was living in neighboring Franconia at the time, and he of course immortalized the story in a poem, and obviously was, very enthralled with the story. Well, no one ever found the settlement. It's kind of like the lost colony of Roanoke. I mean, the historians have determined that some family names associated with the stories regarding this about Mormons, including the name Cooley, have been found. So there are been some confirmations, but no one has ever been able to discover like where these people went, where they lived, or what happened to them. Just one of those enduring mysteries. And these are honestly just some of the missing people and disappearances that have occurred in the White Mountains National Forest. Apparently this area is just very eerie and spooky as far as like, people telling campfire stories and different things that have actually happened in and around this area. So definitely plan well and be careful if you do go out in this area. It is a beautiful area and looks like it has awesome hiking and camping. So I'm not saying it's, I'm not trying to fearmonger. It definitely looks like a place I would hike in and camp in, but it also looks like it's a place that, demands respect, and that you should, have a good plan and, know what you're getting into, and make sure that you go with a group if it's your first time. And yeah, this is just a PDF of like all the recent missing persons in New Hampshire. I'll have a link to this in the description. It's a good thing to keep an eye on in every state, any state that you live in. I want to thank everybody for watching as always, and special thank you to co.ag for providing the background music, and I will see everyone in the next one. Take care. As always, guys, thanks for sticking with me to the end. I just got notification from the place I got the calendars from. They should be in by next Wednesday. So I should be able to start shipping by the middle of next week. And anybody who wants one, they can just send me PayPal or Venmo $15, and I'll get you out your calendar. I'll just need your shipping address, and yeah, that's pretty much it. And I am working on several other things for merch. I was thinking about maybe a little survival kit that came with a emergency blanket, maybe a life straw, something like that, a couple other things. So we'll talk about that soon too.